Welcome back, everybody. This is On the Ball, the new video interview series from the Vanderbilt Sports and Society Initiative. I'm Andrew Maraniss, and I am so excited that Charles Davis has agreed to come on the show today. Charles, you're somebody that I've admired. I remember when you started doing SEC football games. I don't know if it was way back like in Jefferson Pilot days or is that what it was? Yeah. And I felt like, man, this guy is so good. He's not going to be doing Jefferson Pilot for long. And now, we all know you for the work you do on CBS for the NFL, and you've been with Fox NFL Network and so associated with NFL football. And among other things, also the Madden game, which my son is 9 years old.
Oh,
He's sort of prime Xbox, getting to that age, right? And so this is what he asked for Christmas. And he still believes in Santa. So he's just not thinking about like, it's kind of expensive to get an Xbox, and you're only 9 years old, but he got it this year. Santa felt like he was a good boy, so we've been playing a lot of Madden together over the last couple of weeks, and hearing the work that you did for it really got me interested in just how that is done, and like this initiative we have looks at sports, but also social issues. And this is a little bit off social issue. It's about culture, American culture, Madden, one of the most popular video games of all time. And so I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about your career, but also specifically what goes into being one of the voices on the Madden game. Charles, thank you so much.
Andrew, thank you for having me. This is an absolute thrill, and to be on with you. Everyone knows about the great work that you've done along the way. We have some shared experiences in a lot of ways because we're both SEC guys. We both come out of the sports world. You were doing the sports information, and you were the conduit for the university with us media people whenever there were ball games going on between the players and the coaches. You've done the PRs thing. You've done the incredible job writing, and I have to tell you. You know how people grow up like fans of rock stars and athletes and people like that. This is going to sound self-serving, but if you meet people in my circle, they'll tell you that it's real. For me, it's authors, it's writers. And I've always felt that way. And I flip out, okay, when I have an opportunity, to either meet someone or have a chance to kind of live their life a little bit. Pat Conroy, who we lost a few years ago. Never had a chance to meet him, but I feel like I know him based on his writing and the canon of work that he has done. When you throw out, Harlan Coben, I've had an opportunity to meet Harlan Coben, and what a thrill of a lifetime. Lisa Scottolini, another incredible writer, and they're so gifted. But I met your father in New York a few years ago when the Lombardi play was coming out based off of his book. And I call it the definitive tome of Vince Lombardi. I don't think anyone else can do it better. There's no chance at all. And I met your father, and I absolutely fanboyed. Absolute, like total, lost myself in it big time. So I know we're going to get to the Madden game, but I just want to tell you the accomplishments of you and your father and your family, because I know it goes beyond that. I know we go back to Wisconsin with the writing Maraniss. So phenomenal. I go nuts when I get a chance to meet these or be around these people. Wow. There's another author named Stuart Woods who wrote these books about Stone Barrington was his lead guy.
Okay.
So I went to New York one time and did just like they do in the books. Had dinner at Elaine's. I wasn't even a drinker and ordered a vodka gimlet. I had a Knob Creek on the rocks because that's what Stone would have. All of those things. So believe me, I love to get transported by what you people do, and you guys do it so well. And by the way, I'm extremely jealous because I can't do any of that.
Oh man, well, you do so many things well. I've the feeling's mutual, Charles. I really admire you, and I love it when I'm watching a game that you're calling. And and living here in Nashville, we get to hear you on the radio on Saturday mornings with Coach Matthews also. So you're somebody like that. I kind of feel like I knew you before I knew you. So just hearing you talk so often and really enjoying it. So this is a mutual admiration society for sure. I saw that when you committed to play football at Tennessee, I don't know if this is true. I'd love to hear the story, but one of the reasons that school was attractive to you haven't been born in Tennessee, but growing up in New York, was Condredge Holloway,
Yes.
and my first book was a biography of Perry Wallace, who was an SEC pioneer on the basketball court. Of course, Condredge Holloway, a pioneer as a pioneering quarterback in the SEC. How did you learn his story as a kid, and why did that mean so much to you?
Yeah, you're so right about that. And, every SEC school has its own tale about integration and who was the first and how they come along. And, Condredge wasn't the first, okay, because they had, Lester McLean, who had come through and had played all the way through. I think Lester reported with another young man named Albert Davis, who didn't last as long as Lester. Mm-hmm. So Lester gets full credit. And I actually had a chance to do a paper on Lester McLean.
Oh, yeah.
When I was in college. So how cool was that to meet one of the pioneers? But Condredge was the first Black quarterback in the SEC that was a starter. And I'm sitting in New Paltz, New York, a town in the Mid-Hudson Valley, Ulster County, New York, about 2 hours north of New York City, an hour south of Albany, watching Tennessee season opener against UCLA, 1974, and he runs out to play quarterback. Now, I'm 8-9 years old. I'm not quite totally grasping, but at the same time, I knew something was up. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know every ramification, but at the same time, it's like, hold a minute, I don't see this very often. And he runs out and plays, and there's a lot of history to the game and a whole bunch of things that went with it. But that day I told my dad I was going to go to Tennessee and play quarterback just like Condredge Holloway. Wow. And I became a Holloway fan, to put it mildly. Had the number 7 jersey. I was just like Kenny Chesney. I just loved everything he did. The Artful Dodger, as they used to call him. Followed every step of him along the way. And then he played professional football in Canada. I think he was 1 or 2-time most outstanding player, the Shenley Award or whatever it was called. He won that one, the Grey Cup up there as a starting quarterback, the Toronto Argos. So I'm a Condredge Holloway fan. And what the crazy part was? I went to Tennessee, really hooked on Condredge Holloway. I didn't get to meet my hero until I had graduated.
Okay.
All that time because he was playing in Canada. So they play starting in the summer. So he's not around in the off season when I'm there. I met him afterwards. I went bouncing up to him and said, Mr. Holloway, my name's Charles Davis. He goes, I already know. People have told me. So how lucky did I get that I got to meet him and then stay friends with him throughout? So it was a pretty good deal. And yes, that story is absolutely true.
That's amazing. And you were a history major, is that right?
Yeah, I was a political science undergrad, got a master's in history.
A master's in history. Okay, I was a history major here at Vanderbilt. And my introduction to Perry Wallace was also writing a paper about him for a class. I've gotten to know Walter Overton here in Nashville. I don't know if you ever met Walter, but he should have been the first varsity Black quarterback at Vanderbilt, but was moved like so many other Black quarterbacks in that day to another position, and was then experienced the phenomenon of stacking where, all the Black players were at certain positions. So there would only be a certain number on the field. So, I've been fortunate to get quite an education on that period of football from people like Walter.
Yeah, well, you totally understand. And Perry being a basketball player, going through that with stacking, with numbers, things of that nature. In the NBA during a certain time frame is not there now, obviously, as we watch an NBA game. But as that was starting to happen and more Black players were coming into the league, they had a little ditty in the NBA about how many Black players you would have on the court at a time. Mm-hmm. And it was three at home, 4 on the road, and 5 when you're behind.
Yeah.
And, it was that kind of that deal. And you're right about the stacking. Certain positions we couldn't play because we weren't intelligent enough. So any thinking position, quarterback, center, safety, we weren't, middle linebacker who called defenses, we didn't play those. We could play the other position. So I totally get it. And I thank you for your work on Perry Wallace and introducing us to an absolute legend, not just on the floor, but in life. And what he accomplished. And, again, when you don't know, you're just seeing someone, you don't realize you look at a class valedictorian. You look at a man who went on to become a lawyer. You look, we can go on for days, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, great history there. What's your dog's name? I see your dog behind you.
You probably see a Nolan because that's slowly rolling through, but he's one of 4.
Oh, okay.
So you might see the others come popping through at some point. That would be Nolan, Trouble, Major in Georgia. So there you go.
That's awesome. All right. So let's move on to Madden. Amongst color commentators, there's a lot in doing NFL games. You've risen to the top of the game in television. Is this something that everybody's after? The opportunity to be on Madden as well? Like, how do you express an interest in it? Is it something that everybody's agent is aiming for? Like, how do you even get that opportunity?
Well, it certainly feels that way, Andrew. Fortunate enough to have had that opportunity. 8th year this year with myself and my partner, Brandon Gaudin. Brandon is the former voice of Butler basketball when they went to the Final Fours, and then he went to Georgia Tech, and he was the play-by-play guy for Georgia Tech and all their radio. And now he does a lot of TV with Big Ten Network, Fox Sports, Westwood One Radio, you name it, he can do it all. And I'm pretty fortunate to be able to work with him. For us, we came along at a time where they were making a shift in the game, and I'm gonna try and condense it because for so many years they had the college game. You know, you had the Brad Nestlers and Kirk Herbstreits and all those wonderful voices doing the college game, which is extremely popular, and it's coming back in a year or two. So people are going nuts to have that back. On the Madden side, Jim Nantz and Phil Simms had held it for a long, long time. You know, I mean, my own former partner, Gus Johnson, had been a voice for a while. So you have a number of people who would love to have that opportunity. But those guys have been doing it for a while. And now they were shifting the game to where they wanted to have more of a updated presence, because it used to be, Andrew, the game was the game. They would do 40, 50 hours of recording. It goes into the game, and you don't get something new until the next year when the game came out. What they wanted was to be able to update it. And this has nothing to do with me and Brandon. This was all the EA Sports people and their incredible brains. We will come in after a ball game on a weekend, whether he did a Saturday or I did a Sunday or however. Monday, Tuesday, we would update the game. We would have, you know, what they called LCUs, immediate updates to all the games, the action, injuries, great performances, all of those things. And by Wednesday, Thursday, the people playing game could download it into the game. And then they would have that. And that was kind of a game changer at the time that we did it. I'm not quite sure how they're doing it now and if they're doing it as much as they used to, but that was a monster deal. So we would come in and do our recordings Monday and Tuesday each week during season. And then after the season was over, we would go 3-4 times a week, depending on what we needed to do, what they call patches or fixes or things of that nature. So it's been an incredible honor. I would think a lot of people would want it. We got into a kind of an open audition. At that time, it was an open audition to do it. I know that they're going to branch out, and I don't want to step on their toes or say something I shouldn't say. They're going to branch out and have more people will have an opportunity to be voices of this game. But I think for Brandon and myself, we'll be forever proud to be associated with that franchise, one of the most iconic people in the history of the game of football, in John Madden. Because even after Coach had retired from coaching, after he had done his broadcasting, after the Madden game rose to the heights that it has risen, when the NFL was making a move or a thought or a decision, there wasn't a single thing they did without calling him to get his thoughts as well. Now, people may or may not know that, but before he passed, if it was a big deal, they called Coach Madden to see what he thought about it. Now, whether they always took his advice, I'm not going to sit here and say they did it every time. He was truly someone they considered. What would Coach think? You know, you almost had the wristband. What would John do? You know, so that's how it went. But, you know, we've been fortunate enough to be a part of that. And, you know, like anything else, you're playing with your son, you know, you're connecting across things. I met a grandfather who says that he plays with his grandson, and they're in different states.
How cool.
It's part of what connects them and keeps them together. So that's a pretty cool deal.
Amazing. Well, I'm interested in just the mechanics of how it works. Like, where are you sitting, recording? Are you doing it at a home studio? Are you going to New York or LA? Is there a script in front of you? Are you watching a real game, an imaginary game? Like, how do you record the lines that we all hear when we're playing the game?
Great question. Let's see if I can do it right. Okay. See if I can do it. We have writers. Okay. And they put together a script for us. So we're not going to sit here and take credit like, oh, we came with everything on our own, because we didn't. They have to hit all the situations. My dad always talked about, to do anything right, you must prepare for every eventuality. And that's what they try and do in this game. So you got to have all the types of runs a running back would make, all the types of runs, you know, if you're going to do the wide receivers now that are getting the running plays, what type of pass plays. tight end catching the ball, back catching the ball, who makes the tackles. Each person has to be involved in all that. All that has to come together. They script it. And each time we get together, there's almost a theme to whatever our session is. If it's not just updating the game, it's okay. Today it's going to be, tailback runs to the left, gaining 10 to 20 yards.
Yeah.
Each time you'd have to go over it and do it. And sometimes it'd be the defensive tackle makes the play. The defensive end makes the play. The linebacker makes, you get the idea. So there is a script in front. But for us, what they did, and over time, especially I believe as they trusted us more, the script wasn't, we had to follow word for word in the script. The script a lot of times was, here's the situation. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Let's see what you guys can do. Is there video playing while we're doing it? And the answer is no. So we would be before COVID hit, we would meet in the offices near Orlando, and we would sit in a recording booth, and he's got his mic, I've got mine. And we just as you and I are doing right now, we talk to each other, except we were in the same room. And one of our bosses called it theater of the mind. And I said, yeah, mind is good, because I don't know if mine was up to it. So we had one, Brandon's, that worked really well, and I'm trying to come along with him. But we would see each other and do that. And then when COVID hit, everyone had to get creative, and EA Sports was no different. They were able to make it work where we could do it from home. Brandon recording at his home, me recording at my home, them conducting it from their homes, or if they were able to get into the studio in certain situations. However it worked, somehow we were able to keep going doing the franchise during that time. I missed seeing everyone. I missed the energy of us being together, the writer in the room, the producer in the room, someone else listening, and I didn't quite like that one. Can we do it this way? Oh, we ought to add, those sort of things that hit right at that moment.
Okay.
Some probably got lost along the way, but at the same time, us being able to keep going was I thought really impressive, and I give the EA Sports people nothing but credit.
And so it sounds like, was there a period during the off season where you would have a block of time where you're doing most of it, and then you're updating it over the course of the season? Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. So how many hours or days was the main sessions that you were doing?
During the season, Andrew, we'd meet Monday and Tuesday every week. Okay?
Every week.
I'm going to do prior to COVID, okay?
Yeah.
Monday and Tuesday, we would come in and do that, come in from wherever we were coming in from. I was fortunate because I lived in the Orlando area, so I could drive over. My partner had to fly in. But anyway, we would do that Monday, Tuesday, usually about 3 to 4 hours a session, somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, I don't want to overstate it, but I don't want to undersell it either. We can come in and do it in 15 minutes and go home.
Right.
And then when the season was over, when we were done with our seasons, and Brandon, of course, he had basketball, he had baseball. We would work around schedules. I had an NFL draft. We had all bunch of stuff, but we'd work around our schedules. And sometimes as we were getting closer to the release date of the game, we might come in 3-4 times.
Okay.
And get it done. All right. So it just all depended. I never counted the hours like, hey, we did so many this day, so many that day. I'm guessing that in your writing, in your teaching, in your things, I doubt that you sat there and said, okay, I did this many today. And
right.
You did what had to be done to get the job done, or what you were able and capable of doing that day. I think it was the same way with us. So
okay.
We put a lot of hours into it, sure, but that's what was required. That was the job. Mike, that's what you're supposed to do.
How did having that experience of like calling those games influence the way you call real games? Did it, or what sort of correlations were there between the two?
It was different because I knew the outcome, or I knew where I was trying to get to in Madden to meet what we wanted for that situation.
Yeah.
Live football, you don't know what it's going to be.
Right.
It's going to be anything. So there was really no influence that way. What I did find, because we talked about, you mentioned this earlier about the cultural aspect of the game and how it fits into our society, and it's not just the sports world. I think a lot of people know about the Madden game that don't even play it.
Right.
You hear about it. It became ubiquitous and, of course, associated with coach. But I've been calling NFL games for X number of years now, right? I go to my games, and most of the time you sit with players, coaches from the home team, and typically the visiting team before the game, right? You do your little, what we call production meetings. Mm-hmm. Head coach, star player, quarterback, that sort of deal, right? There has not been a single weekend I've done a game, Andrew, and I promise you I would take any lie detector test out there. A single game I've done that in at least one session of a production meeting, someone did make a Madden reference.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't because I was sitting there.
Really?
Rarely did they associate me with Madden. I can count on one hand over the number of years I did it doing games that someone in the meeting went, hey, don't you? Just almost never happened. We're voices coming at them. And as you know, playing with your son, the better the players, the quicker they play the game. So the commentary part sometimes gets lost when they're really good players because they button through and they get to the next play, button through, get to the next play. And our faces aren't really on the screen.
Yeah.
So it's never really connected. But I would sit in a meeting and I would say, hey, Chandler Jones, 3 sacks last week. What a game. He goes, yeah. I'll never forget it. It's like, he goes, yeah, if that doesn't improve my Madden rating, I don't know what will.
Right. So it matters to those guys, huh?
It matters to. I was in a meeting this year, and Travis Kelce, the all-pro tight end for Kansas City, was wearing a necklace with a 99 on it. And the 99 is the top score you can achieve in Madden. And if you
not
get
his jersey number.
they send you the, and he was probably wearing it in a production meeting before the game. And I said, wow, look at you, Mr. 99. He goes, yeah, this was 2 years ago. I wasn't a 99 last year. Get it back up there. And these guys, it means something to them. I had a Hall of Famer who grabbed me at a meeting. I'm going to keep his name out because I don't know if he would want this story out there.
Yeah.
But a Hall of Famer retired, Andrew, got his gold jacket, no question how great he is, grabbed me and said, hey, I need to talk to you about my Madden rating. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you know, in the Legends part of it, I'm in the Legends game. He said, my speed rating is not what it should be. I said, well, what do you care? You're in the Hall of Fame. He goes, oh, I care. Who do I need to talk to?
Wow.
And I put him on the phone with someone at Madden.
He did.
He gave him what for about 10 minutes, came back, handed me the phone and said, I think my rating's going up. So it does mean something to these guys.
Unbelievable. Well, my son and I are not very good, so that's why we hear so much of you. I guess we're not.
Oh, by
we're
the
not
way,
skipping through.
There's a mute button on the game, Andrew.
Was there a mute button?
There's a mute button. So when you get tired of hearing my voice, click mute and life is good.
One thing I was curious about too, like after you do it over a period of years, is your commentary kind of in a bank where they'll call up something that you said 2 years ago when you were recording it, or you doing it all over again every year?
They have that capability, and there's no way we can recreate everything each year. So what they like to do is go a certain amount of time, and then they'll come in and say, hey, guys, we got to refresh this sequence because this comes up a lot in the game, and you hear it all the time. Okay, my son is now 25. When I started doing this, he was in high school. When I took the job, he looked me dead in the eye, and he said, hey, so glad you're getting this. This is so cool. First time I ever had street cred from my kid, right? Because this is so great. He goes, but hey, you got to come up with a lot of lines because I don't want to play the game and know exactly what you're going to say every time a certain play comes up.
Right.
Before we even started. Now, impossible, depending on how much you play the game to avoid it, but you try your best. And the EA Sports people are very good about, hey, these lines have played a lot because it's amazing how they can capture all that data. How often a line plays and who's playing with what team and who's doing whatever. It is stunning how they capture the data. So they'll come in and say, we have to freshen these up. So we have to come up with other lines, do other things.
Okay. I was on a podcast yesterday as the guest, and one of the hosts, it's a sports book podcast. One of the hosts was David Aldridge. And, you know, great writer, but also known for his TV work, of course, but also for his stand-ups on NBA 2K. And I got street cred from my son when I told him David Aldridge was going to be one of the interviewers. And when I mentioned it to David, you know, that my son thought I was cool, the other hosts of the podcast said, man, if we had $1 for every time somebody mentions NBA 2K to David, you know, and I wondered, like, I almost apologized at that point, you know, like he's done so many things. Did he want to be associated with this game, or was that, you know, an honor to him? Like, how do you feel? Like, you do great work on TV. You're also known for a game. Like, is it all great? Or does it bother you at all when people just, you know, associate you with a video game?
No, I think that if it'd be disingenuous for me to say that in the beginning, I was like, I do other things, like,
Right.
I would say to myself, there's other things. But then you realize how fortunate you are that people recognize you in the first place. I mean, yeah, there's a lesson that's in there that's, hey, man, you're not so great that you can't recognize me for that. It
Right.
must be this. Well, they may not think you're very good at the other thing. So you're fortunate to be recognized, period. But yeah, I think in the beginning, I thought to myself, and remember I said my son's street cred?
Mm-hmm.
When I got the Madden gig, he has friends who would come over to the house. But when the Madden gig was announced, they were at the house every day. Like, now I can't get rid of them. And that's when I realized how big this was. I was fortunate enough at the time I got the Madden gig. I'd called 3 national championship games in college football in the BCS era. I'd been in the NFL. I'd been in college football. I'd gotten up to, I think, number 2 on the NFL side at that point. All those things were sort of starting to kick in or moving up to number 2 on my side. But the Madden game, that's what excited people. And I had to realize you better embrace that. You're pretty lucky that as I said before, to be remembered for anything. And you don't get to dictate the terms on what it is. Andrew, before that, it was Golf Channel.
Is that right?
I would recognize more for Golf Channel than I would for my football calls.
Really? Okay.
I did a show on the Golf Channel called The Grey Goose 19th Hole.
Yeah.
Myself and Kelly Tillman would host, and Vince Cellini would host, and I was on with the guy, the Big Dog, and the Big Dog was their star from the first season of what was called The Big Break. Okay. Yeah. Being on with him, it was Dumick, Steve Dumick, the Big Dog out of Tampa. We lost him a few years ago. God rest his soul. And I got more people that recognize me from that because I'm on camera 27 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You're on. When I do a football game, if you miss the open, if you miss halftime, if you miss a booth shot, you're just a voice, and it just changes everything. So I got that a lot. My favorite was doing a game at Texas Tech. Pre-game, I'm on the field, talk to the defensive backs coach at Texas Tech, and he looks at me, goes, "What are you doing here tonight?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm calling the game." He goes, "You do football?" And I was like,
"Yeah."
You
just did golf.
He goes, "I watch you on the 19th hole. You're a golf guy. What are you doing a football game?" No, I'm actually a football guy doing golf. That's all right.
Hilarious. Well, I want to let you go here. I wanted to ask you one thing. Just being in the NFL circles the last few weeks, how did the Damar Hamlin injury affect people? What have you just observed in the press boxes, the stadiums that you've been in? And do you think there's anything lasting that will come from this? It was nice to see the country really sort of unify behind him and raise so much money for his charity. You don't see really people come together that much anymore on many issues. And so if there was any silver lining other than him living, it was the way that people came together. But what's been your observations these last couple of weeks?
I think you stated it perfectly, Andrew. To see country, and I would dare say world, because football's popular other places and people follow the NFL. I'm fortunate enough every year when I say every year, in the last 10 years, I've done the international broadcast of the Super Bowl through NFL Films, and it goes to like 180 other countries. Okay. So a lot of people are watching football that we don't think about. Last year when I did the game, a friend texted back, said, "Hey, I'm in Thailand. I can hear your voice." He sent a video where you can see the game and hear our voices on it, myself and Kevin Burkhardt. To your point, I was sitting there watching. I'm old enough to remember Chuck Hughes, the last NFL player to die on the field, 1971 Detroit Lions. They finished that game. They took Chuck Hughes off the field and finished that game, Detroit versus Chicago in 1971. There was no way they were finishing this game. I thought it was handled so incredibly well. The first responders doing their job to the nth degree to save his life right there on the field. The players coming together. You hear about all the backstories of Cincinnati captains going to Buffalo's locker room to talk to their captains. What do you need from us? How do we? Everything that came together. I thought my colleagues who had to be on air, and there's no manual for this, they all hit it out of the park. Not because they were trying to hit it out of the park, but they handled a situation that there was no way you could know what to do, how to do it at that moment, and handled it so incredibly well. I don't want to single out any one person. I think that'd be wrong. But I thought they all were incredible that night, and I couldn't have been prouder. And I remember saying to myself, I wonder if I would have handled it half as well, a quarter as well. None of us really know. We hope we never find out. But I do think it's going to be lasting in terms of, once again, remember, we're competing. We want to win, but ultimately we will take care of each other when the cause comes up. And I thought it was, I don't even know what the right word is, because I don't want to use a word that makes it trite. Mm-hmm. But Buffalo fans have taken care of others so many times. Mm-hmm. This time, someone was taking care of one of theirs.
Right.
And they participate in it as well. You might have remembered a few seasons ago, Andy Dalton from that touchdown pass and put Buffalo into the playoffs. And the Bills Mafia contributed to his foundation.
Yeah.
Next season, Cincinnati came for preseason. I actually did that game, and Andy Dalton got a standing O. But his foundation, they contributed incredibly well to his foundation.
Right.
That's what Buffalo does. They take care. In this case, the rest of the team, rest of the league, rest of the world came and took care of one of theirs. And I thought that was wonderful, incredible to see. Yeah, we know the money is just off the charts for his foundation. He'll be able to use it for so many things now. But I think we all, again, that lesson, let's remember above all, take care of each other.
That's right. Well, that's a great message to end on, Charles. Thank you. This has been a real pleasure for me to have a chance to, even when I got a text back from you, that was a thrill for me, and then to have a chance to talk to you too. Like, I know I can speak for a lot of us here in Nashville and across Tennessee. Like, we root for you, and I love watching you on TV and listening to you on the radio here on Coach Matthews' show. So best of luck to you. You're going to be doing the Super Bowl for the international broadcast?
Yeah, doing it again. I'll be doing it again, this time with my partner, Ian Eagle.
All right.
We'll put it together for the first time. In the past, it's been Kevin Burkhardt and Bob Papa. And I mean, my dad is still in New Paltz, New York, and my dad's from West Virginia and coached in Tennessee and taught there and all that. And I'll tell him how lucky I am, the different things I'm doing. And he always reminds me, never forget how fortunate you are. I know you've worked for it, but never forget how fortunate you are. Take it all in. And I think of those sorts of things. And when I get back to Nashville, we have to get together.
Oh, okay? I would love to. Please let me know next time you're in town. And enjoy that Florida weather behind you. That looks amazing.
I certainly will. Absolutely. And I'll make sure I'll tell Coach Matthews, hey, too, you two Vanderbilt guys getting the
That's right. He's pretty good at crossing that divide between Vandy and Tennessee for sure.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time coaching us up in the north, I was coaching up to a played for him and babysat his kids and the
Did
whole
you really?
thing. So, yeah, Coach Matthews means the world to me. I love that man. There's no equivocation about saying it. I know in the old days, we didn't say things like that.
Right.
That is a man I truly love.
Very good. Very good. Well, Charles, thanks again. And I really do look forward to that opportunity to see you in person. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.